Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Friday, Financial Friday, favorite day of the week. With my guys, this is where we go over all the nice things going on in the financial market, and we explain to you guys what's going on for your future, so that you can be more educated, to prosper, live the way you want to live, and at the end of the day, just give you little granules of education that you're not going to find, streaming TikTok and watching all the funny videos. So that being said, we got two things here. So first thing is, do not hold us responsible if you decide that you want to take a piece of information that we've talked about and make a financial decision for yourself without speaking to us individually. So if you buy something, sell something, trade something, don't blame us if you have not sat down with us individually and we have evaluated your particular situation with you. Okay. The second thing is, the way that we operate here, if you haven't been with us before, is every week one of us will choose three articles that we think are pertinent to help educate you on what's going on in the financial world. Stocks potentially to look at, companies, inflation, all the types of sort of financial information that we think is really going to help you be okay for the future. That, like I said, you're not going to get just messing around. So that being said, gentlemen, before we start, what's good with you?
So Cam with the thorough intro.
I've been doing it a while. Been doing it a little while.
Yeah, with his military halfway canteen. Nah, I'm doing good, man. I'm actually doing great. Good to see you guys, man. I feel like this is the longest couple days that I've gone without actually like interacting with both of you guys throughout the day. So don't get comfortable with that.
I
So,
know, right? I'm like, where's my
that's number
daily
one.
where's my daily good mornings? What's good?
I got you. I got you. So what's up,
What's up
man?
with you, Rigo?
Oh man, I'm good. Any day. It has been a while since we talked to Glenn. Glenn is thoroughly handling his business and knocking things out, gaining new business and everything. So I never want to hate on that. But I'm good, man. We're here. We got good company. We're gonna be discussing some awesome topics. So
Mhm.
it's fire. It's Friday, man. People feeling good. It's always on Friday.
For
That's how it
sure.
be, man. All right, so as we start, so this week, it was my week to pull up articles. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Everything right now, and I told Rico and Glenn this. Everything right now is Bitcoin or PCE. All right, and so I wanted to make sure I brought some other things to the table, because, as a lot of us know, there are things in the news that will get concentrated on,
Mhm.
and so we are unable to see other information that really might be pertinent to our lives. And so we always try and don't pick the top three things, because y'all probably seen that we want to find the other things to really educate you guys holistically on what's going on. So this is the first thing article that I pulled up was about Ford losing billions on the EVs, and the company embracing hybrids. So, for those of you that know, obviously, everyone's trying to go EV, right? Especially California. There's all these signs now at Home Depot and Lowe's, like, if you don't buy your gas powered equipment now, it ain't gonna be here. And that's real, because I actually tried to buy a gas powered weed whacker, and they said we don't have any of that stuff here anymore down near the base.
Mhm.
And so, that's just the move that not only is California moving to, but more and more states will kind of get behind, more and more parts of the world will get behind. That comes with some positive and some negatives, obviously. Now, there are a few car companies that have took kind of an odd stance when it comes to the EV thing. So Toyota was a big one, right? Toyota
Mhm.
never said, "Hey, we're going to build straight up EVs." They were very big on, we're going to have I think their slogan right now is, "We have the largest hybrid line out of any car company," right?
Mhm.
And so that obviously gained a lot of criticism, because people felt like they weren't trying to move towards the future as far as EVs concerned. Ford also is another company right now that, even though they have embraced the EV space a little bit, they are also going to embrace the hybrid space just a little bit more, because they feel like the consumer kind of gets more, the best of both worlds per se, because of the hybrid rather than gas versus EV. One of the things that I thought was pretty cool in the article when they were talking about Ford uh, embracing kind of that hybrid portion is their truck. Y'all know I've been in the mountain house working on stuff, and the truck in particular, you can like plug in and tap into the EV part of the hybrid truck, all the while it's still being gas, right? Whereas if you were just straight EV, you're like, hey, am I going to work on this job site or am I going to get home today? Like, you have to choose. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But this just shows, honestly, I think, as the world is moving towards EV, there are a lot of factors that have to be considered. Glenn and I sat through a presentation by an ambulance company here locally in the Bay Area. And that was a question that was asked to them is, hey, do you guys plan on having EV ambulance trucks? And he said, when the technology aligns with the price point for a company basis, then yeah. Because in retrospect, he said they were paying 2x what the price of an ambulance was for minus 200% of the mileage they get. And so, albeit we obviously want to be kind to our planet, unfortunately things have to get done. And so there's kind of this balance that has to happen. So that's kind of where I was at with the Ford article. What did you guys think?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting regarding this topic because you can look at this from two different perspectives. You can look at it from perspective like, why isn't Ford trying to move forward with the times? It's like the AI space, right? And then from
Yeah.
a different perspective, like I think from a leadership aspect, as senior leaders on the Ford board or et cetera, when it comes to how the world is starting to change, like you have to make the decision as how much do we adapt in this first phase or in the beginning phases of things versus, there's still going to be a huge market of X, Y, and Z. And so we still need to
Yeah.
service that market because like
Mhm.
you mentioned, like Ford is still focusing on um, the EV space, but there's also still a large consumer base when it comes to the hybrid clientele. And
Facts.
so I think as long as Ford senior or executive team, they continue to look at those numbers and still stay in the know of what's going on and not like allow themselves to go too far behind. I think that they'll pick back up. The maybe not, as it says, Ford loses billions on EVs. I think that they'll still find a way. Hopefully, they'll find a way to make it up. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, those are kind of my thoughts, man. I'll keep jumping in, but I think that's very interesting. But it is almost like the AI space. Like you have folks who are jumping on board now, right? Who learning how the prompt engineering and how to do that. And then you have folks who majority of folks are still behind. But I think one of the differences is in that AI space versus this particular article is that you have people on the executive team of Ford again still willing to take that risk on themselves as a business.
Yeah.
And so very interesting.
So there's nothing wrong with, obviously, you guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's nothing wrong with obviously making the push towards EV. In the article, it said that it's going to take a little bit longer to ramp up, right? I think if you look at, so just a specific like data point, they said 56% of purchasers that are purchasing the Maverick, which is a small little truck, they're actually choosing the $1,500 option of being hybrid. And
Mhm.
so I think what you start to see is that there's a specific demographic or niche market that's looking to be in that hybrid sector. Because if you put that same option on an F-150 or the F-250, it's not going to sell the same, right? And so
Yeah.
that kind of adheres to the demographic and the way that people are thinking. I
Yeah.
spread that across, so that's the microcosm or the macrocosm. Right now, they said 2035 is when mostly will be moved back over to EV vehicles, mostly, or
Yeah.
basically all EV vehicles. I think they're going to have to push that out. And I think
Oh,
that's determinant upon the economy. And I think also people have to understand that it's not economically feasible because if I can only go 400 miles on a battery and, different charging sectors, different, the space that it is between those two. What if you run into a space like perhaps, just giving the difference between, like say, like Phoenix and like Palm Springs, right? 400 miles. And depending upon how you hit that, you might hit a space where you don't have another charging sector. And so that's what I'm saying. There's things to really be thought about logistically. And I think Ford is thinking about that overall, and they have the majority of their customer base is, you know, just Midwest, Southern, right,
Yeah.
pickup truck, like they're going to use gas.
Facts.
And so we're going to give you the option. The Maverick
Yeah.
itself is a small truck it's not even really a truck, right? You're not using it as a truck. It's just, you like to say you got a truck. And so it
Yeah.
fits that
You
demographic.
move half a sofa.
Yeah, yeah, a little pickup today. Yeah, so that's kind of what I look at it. I also see Ford also being looking to appease the public sentiment, right? As we start to move into more millennials are being into C-suite and executive positions because Generation X and back are actually retiring now out of
Yeah.
those positions, and so it's an appeal to the generational changes that you see occurring. But I don't know if it's overly cost effective. Like Cam said, I mean, let's be real. If it charges you X amount of dollars to charge that battery, I can only go 400 miles, but I can go and do a full tank for $70, and it takes me 600 miles.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be come up with. I'm not saying that it can't be done, and with the push for sustainability and all that stuff, from an economic point of view, that it's not ERG anymore, right? They renamed it now as sustainability,
Mhm.
right? Because ERG got a bad name. And so with those things happening, I think the push will occur. I just think it'll be pushed back further. And I think Ford may be just as ahead of the times when it comes to understanding that hybrid is a little bit more attractive than EV only.
Mm-hmm. Hey
Yeah.
Kim, I had also seen, in addition to what Rico was saying, I seen in like two paragraphs below when Rico was talking about the 56%, how it
Mhm.
talked about the client surveys,
Oh yeah.
right? And so I really think, especially over the next couple of years, like if I was a part of the Ford executive team, one of the things that I would do is whoever's in charge of monitoring the surveys from the clientele is be very, very diligent with looking at that data and communicating that up the chain, because that is going to also be very, very important. Just, to Rico's point, when he's talking about all the economic changes,
Mhm.
if the client base are talking about moving, left or go right, like that's something where, again, they may have to move that gauge a little bit earlier or even extend it out. I doubt as far as extending it out, but probably moving it to the left a little bit, to make sure that they're still appealing to their client base. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that was but yeah, so those are my thoughts on that article, or just the conversation at hand.
Yeah. I would say don't be too sad for Ford either, because they just took a $9.2 billion loan from the government to expand their EV business. So this is it's all strategic at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
but and then the majority of that going into that partnership that they did with the
Yeah.
conglomerate, with Tesla, because they're going
Yep.
to have to rival. I'm pretty sure Elon and them knew that GM and them were going to be doing that move that they did, right? Which is
Mhm.
rivaling. And actually, GM and those companies, their charging network will be bigger than Tesla's.
Right.
Mm. There you go. Bada
I
bing,
heard it
bada
here
It's a
bing.
chess
first.
game.
Think about it.
Yeah.
It's a chess game, man. It's a chess game. It's
Mhm.
all about money. People say, "Oh, the environment, da, da, da." Man, that's all fake. It's money. It's
Oh, it's all.
financial
Oh yeah.
based.
It's
Yeah.
all money. So so speaking of money, so this article will be we'll talk about it for a second. It's pretty technical, but I thought it was important because understand, and we've talked about this before, that what happens in America isn't only affecting America, and what happens overseas doesn't only affect overseas. And so one of the articles that I found was the Bank of Japan. So it says shock the market with policy tweak. Here's why it matters. So brief synopsis of what happened. So in 2016, the Bank of Japan, they did what's called the YCC, which is the yield curve control. And what they did was they were trying to ensure inflation wasn't going to get too crazy. So what they did was they structured 10-year government short-term bonds a certain way, so that they wouldn't go out of control. That being said, they kind of held on to that for a long time. And funny enough, when they did that, it actually lost people a lot of money when they did that in that instance. And so right now, what happened is Bank of Japan came back and said, hey, we're actually going to start loosening kind of this legislation of and why we did it like that. And so people are saying that this could potentially speak to other changes that Bank of Japan is going to be making towards the future, and how that's going to affect the Japan inflation rate, as far as what does the yen currency, how's it doing? So when they did this change, it actually ricocheted all over the place. Like it says that in the article, again, the yen against the US dollar. And so once again, because of that, we may not hear about it, but all those types of factors affect not only our economy, but the economy of the world. So now you're seeing how inflation is actually impacting other countries now. Granted, their inflation isn't as high as ours, but they have now accepted that inflation has come to them and that they're going to have to make changes in order to combat that as much as possible. What y'all got? Can I get a thumbs up?
No, I mean, you gotta, you kind of hit that one on the head. Go ahead, Rico. You wanna start, and then I'll kind of circle back.
So anytime that you're looking at a comparison between fiat currencies, right, you have to understand that there's always an exchange rate, and there's usually a corridor between the two that's maintained. So a range between the dollar and the yen. Right? I won't get super technical. They're like, oh, he's about to bore us. I'll just leave it at the point to understand that, these bonds in the way that they're traded, it's an influx for the government of Japan and for the Bank of Japan. And so people have to understand that however many of these bonds that are sold or traded, right, to keep that point being where it's at, that's what keeps Japan's economy basically stable in comparison to the American economy, right? So if I'm basing my bonds, right, off of the interest rates that are occurring here, well, we just hiked ours up 10 times in the past 12 months, right? And so what has that done to Japanese, the Japanese economy? We haven't really sat to think about it, but if I'm, usually running it parallel to how our interest rate is going, but we've jacked it up 10 times, that their whole economy has been in a flux, and they've been experiencing disinflation, not inflation, the opposite of that, right? And so you got to think about, they're just trying to level things out. And so the opposite of where we were going, if we are in disinflation, then Japan, I'm saying, if they're in disinflation, how do I get it to go the opposite way and input some inflation to level things back out to where it's just a normal curve, right? More than inverted. You kind of grade off the inverted curve. I'm not trying to be super technical. Basically, I'm trying to flatten out my economy to where we don't have a plus or a minus. We're just running our economy as normal as possible.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Try
And
to
that's
keep it
funny
as
to
simple as
hear
possible.
when we're trying to level ours out the other way, like you said, and like everyone's just trying to figure out how to survive.
But 10 times, 10 rate hikes, you got to think like we're not sitting and thinking, I mean, maybe the Fed is, but they're really thinking about us, right?
Yeah.
They're thinking about America. We're really not fully weighing holistically what it does to Japan. Any of these countries that base their stuff off the dollar, which is one of the biggest reasons why the BRIC nations exist, because they're like, bro, we can't keep trying to run our life based upon America when all they're worried about is themselves. They're not worried about the global community. They're worried about them. So we should worry about us and use another currency. People are like, what are you talking about? Read up on the BRIC nations. It's Brazil, Russia, which Russia's been uninvited to the party right now. Putin's having issues. India, China, South Africa.
He's not invited.
He got disinvited.
Yeah.
He did. They're like, yo, you can't come to the party anymore. And they're making decisions without Russia. So that can turn into a whole thing
For sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Here's an interesting fact. About as we talk about Japan and an inflation rate, the past 62 years, the inflation rate for consumer prices have gone between negative 1.4% and 23.2%. Right. And so now specifically last year, 2022, where our inflation rate was like through the roof, theirs was only 2.5. Right. And so today, really just as of 3 days ago, it's now at 3.5. Right. And so, like it's very interesting to see how inflation impacts so many different countries, so many different ways during the same specific time. Right.
Yeah.
And so
if you're going to go 7%, 7 to 9% in America, right, and it correlates to a negative invert in Japan, right? So we go the opposite direction. our inflation is coming down there. So that's what I'm saying. It's all
Right.
like this leveling act
Yeah.
that you're trying to figure out.
Right.
And each country has to take account. Their country leaders and the economic leaders in that country have to take account of how it'll affect their country.
Right.
Mhm.
The same way we're doing, right? So we're like,
Mhm.
oh, how could you do that? How could you, Japan? How could you? Because they're trying to survive, no
Right.
different than what we are.
Right.
Mhm.
And you have to. The smart move is it goes back to like you putting on your oxygen mask, right?
Yeah.
Like yes, there are global there are well, just like the US and Japan, we do business globally. It's you still have to make sure that you can breathe within your
Mhm.
country. So and I hope that America continues to focus, like keep the main thing and focus on home issues
I agree.
and restructuring the foundation, because the foundation has so many cracks in it right
How about we just get rid of the Republican and Democrats? How about that? How about all of you get fired and then we just start all over? How about that?
now.
Yeah, can we just start over? Can we get a redo?
Get them all out there.
For sure.
Yeah, buddy. All right. So as we slide, one thing you guys will see on our show is that we strategically talk about articles in a row on purpose. There's usually a build up, and that's because we want to kind of talk about what builds up into something that's probably kind of the main point of each one of our shows. So as you guys know, we talk a lot about AI or recently as far as how it's affecting not only the world. Now, for those of you that know, we are financial fiduciaries. Okay. So we help people structure retirements and things of that nature. Now, one of the things, and I actually heard it this morning, was, oh, I could just type into a computer and like it'll tell me what I should be doing. Wrong. And so I thought this article was very interesting, because something else that a lot of people don't know about GPT is, as great as it is, it will give you false information and it will tell you wrong things. And not to mention, even if you do one of those, fancy attachments, or not attachments, but additions where you can like access it to the internet or something like that, guess what it does? It pulls up articles written by humans. So at the end of the day, everything taken from a source such as ChatGPT or something else cannot replace what a human can do. And whether that human is us or somebody else, it was really important, I thought, to talk about this article and how it really speaks the truth of that. Every person is different, and every financial situation is different. General knowledge is great, but at the end of the day, things change. I spoke to a client this morning, and although currently with his advisor, he does an annual review, I told him I do quarterly reviews because something can change in a month. Think about what's going on right now, And so in this article, it kind of talks about what it did was it took a financial advisor, it took ChatGPT, and it talked about, hey, what would your advice be? So it asked the bot, ChatGPT, it said, hey, what would your advice be? In a general sense, it said, save as much money as you can in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. And of course, per the norm, it recommended a 401k as well as in IRAs. I think that's funny, considering that we are actually seeing a time right now where a lot of the people who actually use those vehicles aren't actually able to retire. Um, or they did not use those things appropriately. And so once again, that's where that, hey, general advice is great, but specific advice for you really comes into play. Okay. If there's anything on our show that we talk about, it is take advantage of the experts in the field. We all have that. We all go to a doctor to get worked on. We all take our car to a mechanic to get fixed. Your finances should not be any different, albeit it's very important for you to be educated. It doesn't replace people such as ourselves or other financial fiduciaries. So I thought the article was really interesting, like I said, because like this general plan that ChatGPT laid out was just like, oh, 10 to 15%, 10 to 15%, save. And it's like, no one ever saved themselves into retirement. Not to mention, when it finally got to like, I think like your 50s and your 60s, pretty much it was like, oh, and if you didn't catch up, then try and just throw as much as you can at it. And it's like, that's not a smart plan, people. Like I said, it did bring a financial advisor into the mix to kind of ask him what his approach would be. And I liked it because it really kind of mirrored what we do with our clients when we talk to them about, hey, what's your specific situation be? And that's really what your fiduciary should be doing with you guys when you're sitting down to talk about your money. But being as that Glenn is our resident AI expert.
Thank you. Hey, real quick, for anyone watching or rewatching, we may go over 30 seconds. So, I will say this: while I am a huge fan of AI, of this space, of this arena, I will say regarding your finances, regarding your retirement specifically, do not just depend on AI to just give you sound advice of what to do with your finances. And I say that coming from a space of coming from a perspective, I am not only big on AI, I'm big on innovation. And so when it comes to certain things, you still have to stay strong. There are people who are experts in fields for a reason, right? Yes, you can program robots, you can program different things or program programs to potentially outthink, but you can't tie that into an emotional piece, right? And while not from a sense of just making an emotional financial decision or giving an emotional financial advice, but I think that is something to be said when it comes to a licensed fiduciary, right? So I'm gonna expand just financial advisors, specifically licensed financial fiduciaries, and just going against ChatGPT. Yes, you can get the framework. Cool, you got the framework, but like you mentioned in the beginning, Cam, everyone's financial situation is different, right? And you need to be intentional with that. I will say with this, if you are someone who is not very your IQ when it comes to finances is not high, cool. Utilize ChatGPT for that framework for the foundation. But again, find yourself a licensed fiduciary and sit with them, right? So that they can actually get very clear in your goals and needs so that you can specifically come up with a plan within the plan, right? And so man, don't just go find don't just learn prompt engineering and and just go out with your fingertips on the keypad, man. So I really hope people listen to this advice or my opinion. And so man, this was a good one though. I'm glad you brought this one to the table.
Well, it's a resource, right? Like it can even help you maybe structure questions to talk to your financial fiduciary about. Hey, I've typed into ChatGPT and it said I should ask about this, that, or the third. That's great. We love those questions. That's the stuff we live for, rather than, hey, you said this, but ChatGPT said I should do that. Like, all right, Terminator.
Let's do
10%. So if you looked at the numbers, you could do 10%, right, for probably about 20 years. That gets you 200,000 on an average $100,000. Right? Then you move to 15 to 20%. If I save 20, that's another 200,000, right? For like those 10 years. And in your 50s, it's telling you 20 to 25%. You probably average about 22.3. You end up at about $750,000. 750,000 is about where you end up if you did that on $100,000, salary, which we know 90% of Americans are less than 100,000. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that you're not going to get there. Wait, well, what do you mean? Even if I took your salary at $100,000, right? And I said, hey, are you living comfortably right now? And they say, yes, I am. And so then I say, okay, I never want your standard of living to be less than where you are right now at this exact moment. So that's you spending $100,000 a year. I have to be able to, right, to mirror that in your retirement because you want to keep your same standard of living, right? And so with that being said, and then not to mention medical costs, all these things coming in that you're not adding in, you're not factoring in. And so we got to buffer that a little bit.
Yeah.
So how is that going to work? Because that's only 7.5 years. If you got 750,000, but you make 100,000 a year, your lifestyle is based upon $100,000 a year. Oh, well, by then I won't have the house. I won't have the car. That's right. Or the kids. But what replace that is the medical cost, or replace that is possible in-home care, traveling, right? Grandchildren, all these things. And guys, just don't ever be fooled. Don't think just because your kids are not in your house that you're not paying for them. They're still your children. I guarantee you, in their 30s and in their 40s, they're not 100% there. They still need help. They're still growing individuals. If you're 70, you're going to know more than a 40-year-old. And so these are things that you have to realize. And so transitioning into that, what I'm saying is that ChatGPT could give you that formula, and if you follow it, if you ended up in your mid 60s retiring, you would be sorely, sorely short. And that's in today's dollars.
Yep.
Inflation times the 30 years that you did it, and you're way short. And so I just want to sit and let you know that yes, ChatGPT, but ChatGPT doesn't have the emotional aspect. ChatGPT doesn't understand your propensity to
Yep.
spend money, right? And so it doesn't equate into it more money that you're going to need because you like to spend money. And so when you sit down with your fiduciary responsible agent, right, or broker, with that fiduciary responsible person, they sit down and they're going to tell you, okay, you like to spend this. And so I'm not going to cut out a whole bunch of stuff, but we're going to cut about 10% of that and we're going to reallocate that here.
Yep.
And then we're going to move this. And they can give you an educated and an individualized plan for you and how you are versus it also said in that article, here's the thing, ChatGPT, it sees you as equal. It'll see someone else with your same salary and give them the exact same type
Exactly.
of plan that it gives you, not knowing that we're way different. I earn $100,000 1099. That ain't nowhere near the same as earning it as a W-2. So these are the things that you just have to understand, right?
Yep.
When you sit down with your fiduciary, because they will understand that.
Mhm.
Okay, we need to do you have your LLC? Okay, no, then we're going to do that so you can leverage that, right? And then there's more write-offs. There's more opportunity. Are you S Corp, C Corp? That's what I'm saying. All these things play into play. ChatGPT is not giving you that. So
Yeah.
while I love ChatGPT, most people don't even know how to prompt engineer, put things into it to get what they want out of it. So you think you're going to trust your whole retirement and your entire financial future on something that you can't even instruct to give you a nutrition plan or tell you which vitamins to take? Like, no,
Mhm.
this is, it's a great tool, but let's be reasonable here and let's be responsible. Let's make sure that we're sitting down with someone that can give us the information that we need. It can help us build a
Mhm.
legacy for ourselves and our families.
I
Facts.
believe legacy builders, which is also equivalent to championships. Championship teams have specific game plans, and the same thing. While everyone gets the blueprint of how to draft up the X's and O's, how you specifically draft up the X's and O's will get you those championships. And so, if you're
Sure.
looking to create generational wealth, provide legacies to the next few 7 generations,
Mhm.
That's what it said. That's the goal.
you can't just depend on the Chat GPT. So
So that being said, well, we only went 3 minutes over. I think that's pretty good.
We did good.
So, great points, y'all. And I thought it was really important for us to kind of establish that because we do this for you all. That's why we do. You guys are watching Financial Friday right now. Right around the corner, Monday, we got Money Mondays. That's where we actually talk more specifically about how we are helping clients individually. Here, we like to keep it general and holistic to the world. On Mondays, if you really want to kind of know what we do for people and what we talk about with them, that's where you guys are going to tune in. Okay. Also, on Thursday, Rico has Taylor Talk with Carlton Bryant. He also has the Growth Hour with Lentrina. And then, are you doing? I guess what else you got going on, Rico? Oh, Wednesday,
Well,
Latin
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So growth hour will move to Jesus. What is it? It'll move to 5 p.m. on Wednesdays now.
Okay.
Just switching some things up, and then we also have Wealth Wednesday comes out on Wednesday.
Yep.
Latin Wealth, myself and Chris Bayoso, and then of course Financial Fridays. Man, we're here and on break. I always say it on break right now, but make sure you're going and looking at those episodes. The L3 perspective. These two gentlemen have created a masterpiece of a podcast. You're going to learn a lot. There's gems. Take your notes out. The L3 perspective. Go like, subscribe, and share it.
Facts.
for sure,
Appreciate
season
you.
2.
So as we wrap up, we hope you got any last words, gentlemen. G, you got anything? All right, bet.
No,
All good.
So we appreciate y'all. It's been another Financial Friday. Don't forget to check us out on Money Mondays on IG Live. We don't do it across everything, strictly IG Live. You can catch us at any one of our profiles. But other than that, this is Financial Friday, and we will see y'all later.